Alright everyone, welcome back with another pickup. This is a Cannondale R300 CAD 2. Pretty sick frame, I think. It's kind of like a dark green. Here it is from the 97 catalog. You can see someone upgraded some of the parts. Originally it had RSX group set on it, but yeah, this is how I got it. And yeah, I've had a group set that I was looking for a frame for. So yeah, I think this is a good frame for that. Hopefully it should make a pretty cool project. Alright, starting from the top, we got these Sinelli bars. Old school, but yeah, they're bent, so I'm gonna have to get new ones. And then Sinelli stem, pretty sick. Shimano RSX drifters. I did have a test of them, but they don't seem like they're working that well, but maybe I can fix them up. The left one seems to be working a little bit better. The grips are a little bit tacky here, coming apart. This one seems alright. But yeah, it might be new bars, new levers, new grips of course. You can check out this headset. It's pretty rusted through. And then we got these brakes over here. Shimano 105 brakes. But yeah, pretty rusted on the headset. And just on those springs there. The forks are straight, pretty straight I think. And then we got the frame here, Cannondale made in USA, championship proven. Pretty cool. R300, CAD 2 looks good. Didn't come with a seat post this frame, but I measured it and I think it's 27.2. So need a replacement for that. You can see size 54 centimeter. Cannondale again. Logo handmade USA. Cannondale logo on the side. Pretty sick. We do have I don't know if you can see it. We do have some some corrosion underneath the paint, but there's probably not much I can do about that without stripping it. And then down here we got, pretty sure this is a 105 front mech, 105 cranks. You can see also here there's some corrosion, but the teeth seem decent, they don't seem terrible. And the pedals here, just these old school look pedals. You can see there's corrosion under the paint as well. Got the 105 mech. I don't know how straight this is because it was just like off the frame, but yeah, we'll see how that goes as well. And then 105 again on the rear brake caliper, but yeah, you can see some corrosion underneath the paint here. And yeah, that's basically it. Pretty cool frame though. I think it should clean up pretty nicely. I did mention I had another group set with wheels, so that should be pretty sorted. But yeah, I talked to the seller and he said there was no cracks, no dents, so hopefully, fingers crossed, everything will be good. I'm gonna take it apart and see how we go. Alright, just taking off the chain. This chain breaker is still going pretty hard. I gotta use a screwdriver to put it on, but it still works, so I'm into it. And then, yeah, I find snipping off all the cables first makes breaking the bike down way easier. So I recommend doing that. And then here, this rear cable was really stuck in there and I had to use some WD-40 to pull it out. I think this frame has definitely been sitting around for a while. From the listing picture, it looked like it was just kind of kept outside next to a fence. So everything kind of seized in here, this little cable guide on the back of the frame. So yeah, I knew at this point I had a bit of work to be done. Taking off the front mech, this came off pretty easily. And then taking off these pedals. Yeah, just a little bit of WD-40 on the pivots. I end up, I think, putting WD-40 on everything that I did take off. But these actually came off surprisingly easy because the pedals were corroded, so I thought these would be really stuck in there, but luckily someone greased them up. And then here, taking off the cranks, you can see I used the crank arm and the chainstay of the bike to get more leverage. And then here just putting in the crank removal tool. Decided to give it clean with the brush and brush up all the gunk that was in here, just to make sure it seats really nicely and I don't end up stripping the threads. So yeah, you want to wind it all the way in, give it a half turn so it's nice and seated, and then wind down this top bit and it should pop it off. And cranks came off no problem. So yeah, I think whoever upgraded the parts on this bike, you know, obviously put grease on, but then it just kind of sat around for ages. You can see how rusty these eyelets are. And taking off the bottle cage, no brainer here. These bolts were nice. They weren't rusted, so maybe they're titanium or some other material that doesn't rust. But yeah, you can see some of the corrosion underneath the eyelets already. This is completely corroded on too. You can see the salt on the metal, probably aluminum and steel. It's kind of stuck in there. It must have welded itself, and I had to cut the wire and the housing together just to get these off. And then same with this again. And yeah, you can see everything was pretty rough. Yeah, it's just a shame sometimes you just see like a nice frame being just left out for ages. Obviously someone probably had some nice wheels on it, and then someone took off the wheels, put on the new bike, and then yeah, probably just never got around to doing something with this one. But yeah, you can see all these eyelets were kind of stuck. Had to soak them with WD-40, some penetrating oil. Little hammer on the stem there. Try to get this stem out. Yeah, it was pretty corroded. Yeah, I was trying not to go too hard on this bolt because I didn't want to bang up the top of the stem, but eventually it came off, so that worked. Cutting more cables. Here you can see some of the corrosion on the paint as well as on that headset cup, and then same with the top here. I just put WD-40 just try to help loosen it or dissolve some of the rust. You can also use like penetrating oil as well, and that might work better. Here you can see these little washers with those tabs stuck again, so yeah, I gotta tap it out. I just used that little file I made to get rid of pedal caps and just gave it a little tap, and eventually yeah, it came out. You just got to be careful with this because you don't want to ruin the thread, so just be patient and yeah, just wiggle it out. It should come out. Having said that, those top two came out real easy, and then this one was kind of like all stuck in there for some reason. I did tap it both ways I think, and I tried to undo the top of the headset cap and just wind it back down so I can get a little bit more room. And yeah, this took a little bit of work, but eventually I was able to unscrew it and help push it out. So yeah, a little bit of a mission on this one, but got there at the end. Here taking off the headset cups. Yeah, this was on pretty tight. I don't know, it was just tight getting off the cup. I don't know it's because if there was rust on there or it's a different size, but yeah, it was on there pretty tight. And then that came off, and just sliding the forks out here. Here taking off the bottom bracket and using this Pedro's tool, BB holder tool, shout out Boot Bike for sending me this. Basically what it does, you just screw it on and it keeps the bottom bracket tool on there and makes it way easier to take your bottom bracket off, so you don't have to keep fiddling around with your hands or hold it with one hand and unscrew it with the other. But yeah, that popped off. And here, same with the other side. This other side was like super tight for some reason. Yeah, I always wonder like why one side comes off easy but then the other side is like super tight. And here I'm just trying to scrape a little gap in here and put some WD-40. I end up using penetrating oil as well, just because I think that seeps into cracks a little bit better, and that's what it's kind of made for as well. So here, yeah, just going full ham on the frame. You also got to be careful with the frame because the frame is aluminum and you don't want to dent it or you don't want to just break it. So you got to just apply pressure constant pressure as opposed to just like a hammer or something. But you can see here I end up using the breaker bar from the inside of my bike stand again, and yeah, eventually that came off. So yeah, pretty stoked with that. Didn't break anything. So yeah, that tool really helped take off the bottom bracket. I couldn't imagine doing it without the tool with the breaker bar. You would have to kind of find some other way to screw it on. I think some people use a quick release as well. Alright, everything's off. Looking pretty sweet. There is some like corrosion on certain bits, but yeah, everything came off pretty easy. It was just really the BB that gave me trouble. So I'm just going to give it a clean up and see how it is. So to clean up the frame, I just use a light detergent spray, just dishwashing detergent mixed with water, and WD-40 for the hard spots, sometimes a nylon brush to brush down all the dirt and stuff first, but yeah. Alright, the frame is pretty much clean. Just want to show you this. Yeah, this is kind of like this corrosion. There isn't really much I can do unless I just want to sand that back and sand that off. But it's also on like other parts of the frame a little bit. So if I sand it, I probably have to sand the whole thing, and I kind of want to keep the paint. So I'm just going to leave it for now and just clean it as best I can. And then yeah, just gotta run it like this, I guess. I'm going to try to hit this with a bit of T-cut. Hopefully it shines back up a bit. So yeah, T-cut is basically a color restorer. It has an abrasive unit, so it just takes off a very fine layer of the top coat. Probably similar to like whitening toothpaste and what that does to your teeth. But yeah, it works pretty well. You just apply the T-cut, wipe it down, and then spray a little bit of water, spritz some water and wipe that down, and it should turn out pretty good. Alright, I was just about to remove the headset cups so I can clean them a bit easier, but I realized my tool is for oversized 1 1/8. I thought I made a tool before, but I don't know where it's gone, or maybe I destroyed it. Here's basically 25 by 1 by 1 meter tubing, which it's already cut down for me. I'm just going to hacksaw a few lines in here, just like this one, and hopefully this one works. This is, you can see this is steel, but this is aluminum, so this is going to be a bit weaker, but it should still work, I think. You can see the thickness is almost the same. So yeah, not too much to it really, just use your hacksaw and cut down some slots, and yeah, I just widened the slots with like an old suspension seat post just to bend it out a little bit, but yeah, that's how it looks. And then I just give it a brush up with some sandpaper, and then use an old bar end plug just to put on the end, hammer it down. It's not the best fit, but it'll do for this job. And then I ended up spraying penetrating oil inside the tube as well, just because the cups were so rusty, and you want to slide your tool in there until it clicks, and then yeah, give it a solid hammer. Be careful how you clamp your aluminum frame as well. You don't want to go too tight on the frame because it could squash kind of like a Coke can. So yeah, just take your time and do nice solid hits, and it should come off. Alright, got it out. Pretty good quality or condition on the inside. Yes, I was quite surprised about how good condition the bearings were inside the headset cup. The grease looked basically brand new, and I think that's probably like a benefit of having someone done it up tight, so nothing went in. But yeah, it was quite surprising because the outside of the cup was so rusted, but then nothing got on the inside, so that was a little bonus for me. And then here, yeah, I just T-cut the forks, T-cutting the front, T-cutting the rest of the frame. Basically, I just go tube by tube to remember where you are, and it makes it a little bit easier. Here, I couldn't really stand the look of these eyelets, so I tried to clean them up as best I could, just using a little bit of WD-40 and then that little piece of cardboard as like a shield for the paint to kind of brush it up so I can get a little bit harder on the brush. But yeah, that actually worked pretty well. If you do get some of the brush onto the paint itself, you can use T-cut to get rid of the scratches if they're not too deep. And then I end up also using a little bit of a rust converter
painting it inside the eyelet and around the eyelet to make sure it doesn't rust again. Here you can actually say I used a little bit of a file action as well, just to get rid of the rust. It was pretty caked on there.
So yeah, with this fork you can see kind of rusted on the dropouts. So what I'm going to do is just drop in vapor rust and hopefully that cleans it up. Alright, this is the next day. Let's see. I think once I brush it, it might be alright.
So yeah, I just hit it with WD-40 and a wire brush. Ended up being these spinner dropouts. I don't know if they're good or bad, but they're stamped at least. And then using rust converter on them as well.
So it's actually inside the clear coat, so you can't take that off. Should be able to take this one off though.
Yeah, just using a hairdryer for a minute or two, and yeah, just make sure it's not too hot. But yeah, finally the frame was done. I was super stoked on it. Finally everything's clean. I think it looks pretty good. There is corroded bits on the head tube and other bits as well, but yeah, pretty happy with it.
Alright, so here's the group set. You can see it's Exage Sport. Pretty nice, I think. The old bipace rings, downtube shifters, brake calipers. The front D is a different size, so I'm going to have to maybe get a replacement or use the 105 that was on the bike. And then these are the wheels. Same with the hubs. Exage Sport. Pretty neat. And then these rims are super cool. Yukai. Super hard, that says. And then these are matching rims too. Just a bit dusty.
Alright, sorting out the bar situation here. So yeah, with restos, sometimes you need to work out what you need to replace and what you can keep. So I knew the bars were going to be no good because they're bent, but then these shifters, I was thinking maybe I could fix them up and get new hoods for them. These hoods I took off were so tacky and super hard to get off. The shifters weren't shifting all the way, so I wanted to give them a little soak. Sometimes what happens is the old grease inside gets super hard or dries out and you need to free it up. So if you don't want to take off the covers, you can just dump them in soapy water, maybe some degreaser. Make sure the water's hot and give them a soak, and sometimes that frees it up. Here, taking off the bolt here, this bolt was super stuck and super tight. For some reason, the back came off, but then the front was still stuck on, and you can see how rusted it is. It's kind of rusted the whole front of the cap. But I end up using a little bit of a hammer action and penetrating oil. And yeah, it was pretty tough, but eventually it came out. Yeah, you can see here it's splined as well. The bolt was splined so it doesn't turn when you screw it on. But yeah, it was in there pretty tight. And I took it out so I can clean it basically. And here the shifters, after the first soak, the shifters were working a tiny bit, but then they weren't working fully, so I decided to give them another soak with boiling hot water. And what you can do is just basically work through all the gears, put a bit of WD-40 inside the mechanism inside. You can pull back the brake lever, spray WD-40 in there, and try to just work the mechanisms to try to get them working again. You can also see these eyelets here, these little cable things, ferrues. They were kind of welded shut in there, so I kind of had to file them out and file them off, and yeah, that's kind of the best I could do with them. The cable was still fit in there, but yeah, they're completely seized in there. So yeah, after all that, I was able to get them working again. You can see that it shifts through all the gears. I did look online though, and it was almost impossible to get new hoods for them, so I'm gonna have to replace them anyway.
Alright, just seeing if these shifters fit. So it looks like it's a different boss type. You can see it has that little notch that you need that kind of sticks out to the right. I might be able to just put this on and then just file it down. It does have a little square bit on the back, so it should fit. But yeah, see how we go with this one. I did measure this boss with the old Road Boss, and they're both 12mm, and I measured the inside of this is 12mm, so hopefully it fits. What I want to do is file it down flat so it goes all the way down to that square bit. Alright, it's done. Pretty close. I went right up to the curve almost. I'm just gonna try it out, see if it fits. Alright, moment of truth. I think it fits. Yeah, it doesn't turn. I'll put the shift on, see how it goes. Oh yeah. Alright, now I just have to do the other one. Alright, so I'm just going to drop the stuff in the vapor rust. You can see it's pretty gnarly there. Hopefully it cleans up alright. I'm going to take these bearings out first. The bearings are actually good, they're pretty clean. But it's just been sitting out for a long time. So we'll see how we go with that.
Alright, here just taking all the parts off. So yeah, if you want your vapor rust to last a long time, what I like to do is you want to get rid of as much grease and dirt off the stuff you're soaking before you put in the vapor rust, and that makes the vapor rust last a lot longer because it's not continually processing the grime. So yeah, my vapor rust lasted, I think I got the 5-in-1 concentrate, and half of it I used for 2 years, around 2 years already, before it stopped working. And then I still got another batch, which is what I'm using now. So yeah, it lasted pretty long. Here's the next day. Usually you can soak for, starts working after 1 hour, but yeah, usually I just soak it overnight and just knowing that it's fully worked what it can. But yeah, you can see these headset cups, they were still pretty rough. You could brush some of that yellow gunk off, but these are actually like super pitted. You can see I'm just using a steel brush here and just brushing off all the gunk, putting it in the vapor rust a little bit, and then giving it a little bit more. And then you can see once I rinse with water, you got to protect it again with some WD-40 to stop it from flash rusting. The WD-40 just leaves a real thin film on your parts to stop that.
Alright, this is how it's looking. You can see I sanded it all off. I basically just used a sanding block. I tried on the drill press, but yeah, it didn't seem to work that well. It helped it a little, but I think just, yeah, old-fashioned sanding worked the best. But yeah, I think it looks pretty cool. This is the one that's not done or just brushed up. So I'm gonna sand this one back, and then this bolt needs to be sanded on the top, and then same with this.
Yeah, I think it looks pretty cool with the shading. So yeah, that's all done. It took way longer than it looked, but yeah, I think it looks pretty good. Looks alright. Here, cleaning the rest of the parts, just using some detergent, some WD-40. There's really just old grease on here. Everything cleaned up really well because it's just, yeah, this plastic and the metal ball bearings. And then here, everything's nice and clean. Yeah, it feels pretty good once it's all done. Ready to be put back on. And then all the same with all the bolts and stuff as well. And yeah, those little plastic bits just snap on.
Alright, so here's my headset press. It's just, I think this is 10 mil, and I had these 2 plates, but I cut this plate down, but I think it's still gonna work. Basically just put it on top and wind it down and it should go in. I just have 1 cup to put in, so it should be fine, I think.
Installing the headset here, just make sure you grease up the cups. Pretty straightforward here. Grease it up, put the tool in, and make sure it's nice and flat. And what you want to do is just wind it on, and then just wind it on slowly and keep double checking to make sure it's going in straight. And then yeah, press down until you can until it sits flush with the head tube. And that's basically it. That worked pretty well. So yeah, all the parts I just got from Bunnings. Here, just putting the bearings on. Yeah, I had these bits kind of lying around for ages, so I was happy to install them so they weren't just sitting around. But yeah, just make sure you grease up your bearings. I try to put grease on the inside as well first before you put grease on the outside. Because those cage bearings, they have little holes, you can see right here, little holes inside. You just want to fill that up with grease. And then wind on the top cap, make sure it's not cross-threaded, just take your time when you do it. And then putting the spacers on, and then the final lock nut at the top with the little plastic bit. And yeah, that was done. Pretty stoked with how that turned out. Here, putting the seat clamp on, a little bit of grease on the inside as well. This was pretty clean already, so not too much work there.
This is how you measure how wide you can go. Obviously, all tires are a little bit different. To get a general sense, you want to measure tire is the fattest, so probably about midway. And you can see this is about 35, so this gap is 35. I'm running a 23 here at the moment, so I can definitely go higher. Measure in here, between the chain stays, and also here, in between the seat stays. Alright, so there's probably a 5mm gap here, and I'm running 23s. Got this old tire, it's 25, I'm gonna see if that fits. It's pretty tight. Alright, checked it on, bum bum bum. It fits, and I still have maybe 2-3mm. Good tip is make sure you put your brake caliper on before you size your tires, because it could get quite tight. You can see it probably drops it by like 1mm. Another tip is put on your front mech, because it could get tight here depending on what front mech you have, but this one's fine. So yeah, I didn't have a 28, so I tried to work out the math. So I just did some division, and a 28 would probably be 26.2 high, and then you add that to the current, and you're left with 0.7 of a millimeter clearance. So yeah, I think that's gonna be pretty tight. Alright, so I decided to stick with 25, so I'm gonna order some new tires, and yeah, I think the 0.7 is just too small. Industry standard is 3mm, just so you know. But if I run 28s, some people say the tire balloons out after a few rides. So I definitely don't want to have that issue, but I think, yeah, 25 is going to be perfect. Yeah, sometimes you just got to know when to stop and save yourself some headaches.
Alright, let's clean up this group set. This is an Exage Sport group set, which is the highest of all Exage group sets. I think it goes Exage Action, Motion, Mountain, Trail, and Sport. There's probably some other ones too, but yeah, basically like that. It's not the highest grip set, but it's super solid, so I decided I want to keep it together, just like, yeah, cranks, hubs, and everything else. And yeah, it was in pretty good condition as well. Sometimes I do like some of the mid-range Shimano grip sets just because they're a little bit more solid, and yeah, you can kind of just work them through pretty hard and they'll still last. But yeah, these clean up pretty good. Just use a bit of WD-40, nylon brush, and just, yeah, give everything a wipe down. Here I'm cleaning the brake pads as well. Do not use WD-40 on brake pads. I'm just using a dry paper towel just to wipe them down, wipe all the brake surface off. And here cleaning up this Sinelli stem, just using a little bit of foil, again, just to try and get rid of some of the scratches and stuff. I end up using a little bit of sandpaper as well. If you use sandpaper, be real careful because you can take off the clear coat. But yeah, there wasn't too much I could do with this one. Just using 600 wet and dry, and yeah, more WD-40. Here you can see I'm cleaning the bolt. I've heard some people also use steel wool. You can get different grades of steel wool to kind of clean up bike parts. I heard that was good as well, but yeah, this is my method. And then here, just greasing up the stem, putting it in. Pretty happy with how this turned out. It's not, 100% super polished, but I think it goes well with the headset that's already a bit eroded. And I was able to put the stem down almost all the way just to hide some of the little marks as well, so a little bit of cheating there. And then I just did it up loose for now. Cleaning up the rest of the group set. So yeah, you can see these bolts were on pretty tight, but it had these kind of cool old school biopaste rings on, the ovalized rings, which I think are a little bit coming back into fashion now with the newer group sets. But yeah, it was kind of like old technology. It's meant to be for when the oval rings kind of line up with your crank arm, so you can add a little bit more extra power when the crank is horizontal. Yeah, something like that. Don't quote me on it, but that's kind of how it works. I've also heard that some people also rotate their bio pace rings just like a few bolts just to try to get maximum torque, so you can kind of adjust the way your pedal stroke is as well. But yeah, here just cleaning everything else up, just same again, just detergent, WD-40, wire brushes. I'm going to soak this in vapor rust just because it's completely rusted. I couldn't use the exage front mech because it was a different size, but I can use this one.
Alright, you can see this hanger is slightly bent, so I'm going to take it off and bend it back a little bit.
So yeah, I decided to take the hanger off the bike because I wanted to try bend it first off the bike because I didn't want to crack the rear dropouts or anything like that. So what I decided to do was just use 2 shifters and just kind of hulk it and just try to bend it that way. And I think it bent a little. I think if you had a vise or something, of course, it would have been better. And then there was a little bit of damage here, not from me, but from previous person. Just a burr, so I decided to file that off as well, just clean it up. And then here, putting it back on the bike, it ended up bending, I think, enough to make it straight enough, not 100% straight, but just a bit better than it was before. And here's another way you can bend it as well. You can put the rear wheel, the axle, onto the brake hanger, onto the derailleur hanger, and then just bend it using the frame or the wheel, try to get it aligned as much as possible. There's probably tools for this, but yeah, you can see it's straighter than before. And then one last thing you can do is flip the wheel or just take the wheel out and then use a shifter and bend it this way. If it's on the frame, of course, an aluminum frame, just be careful when you're bending it because you don't want to crack the frame or anything like that. But if you go in micro adjustments, it should be fine. Alright, here we are. I think this is the next day. I took out all the stuff with the vapor rust. You can see it worked pretty well on the front mech as well as the bolts, but there's still some slight pitting and some corrosion on it, so I tried to clean that up best I could with a wire brush and some foil as well, and a little bit of WD-40 just to help protect it and get some of the gunk off. But yeah, everything started to come together now, and just putting the chain rings back on. Usually chain rings have a little tab that goes behind the crank arm, so you know what position to put it in. So I just follow this. I follow that for this crank arm, just the original setting. And then here you can see the front mech. It's a little bit worse for wear. You can see some I guess corrosion on the clear coat. And I decided to kind of sand that down. Just use 600 wet and dry, WD-40, give it a quick sand, and I also gave it a nice buff up on the drill press as well. And there you have it. Looks pretty good. I think, yeah, it's the best I could get it for the condition it was in. But yeah, definitely way better than before.
Here's the bars and levers I got. I got these Tektro. I got these new off eBay. Pretty good, pretty solid. I would say these are newer style, so the distance between here and here is a little bit longer. And then here, the bars I got, these are Soma round wise. You can see there's a drop reach and 26.0. Yeah, these are pretty cool. Not the best condition, but they're straight and they're like pretty light as well. I think this is 60, 61. Yeah, super light. But you can see one of the issues I had here was if you zoom in, you can see it's kind of goes in a little bit because someone clamped it too hard, or they use a 25.4 clamp on a 26mm bar. And because this aluminium is so like light, it just kind of clamped on it a little bit. So we'll see if that's going to be a problem when we put it on. Here you go, round wise, 440. So yeah, I'm pretty sure these Sinelli stems came in two sizes for this clamp, 26.0 and 26.4. So this is a 26. You can see it actually fits pretty good when it's on this outside area, but then when I move it towards the center, because it's being clamped down here, it's like a little bit wobbly. So I decided I'm gonna shim it. I'm sure like if I wanted to, I could just clamp down on here real hard and it would clamp down, but I think shimming it would probably be the better bet here. I'm just gonna use this this can, old tin can. I think there was online you can find out how thin these are. I think these are 0.4, something like that, 0.5, I can't remember. But I'm gonna put this on here, cut it out a bit because it's a little bit wide, and then yeah, stick it on. All right, here we are. So yeah, I think it fits pretty well, pretty snug, you can see. And I think I'm gonna taper these corner bits in a little bit, just because I don't want them to stick out. So I'm just gonna try to cut it. And then the main thing with the shim is just make sure the opening is at the bottom where the opening is. That way you can kind of clamp down.
So yeah, I'm just using kitchen shearers to cut tin. That's how you do it. It cuts through pretty easily. And then here, just centering the bars, I'm measuring from the stem to the end of where the texture changes. So from the shiny bit to the more matte bit. And then if you just measure it even on both sides and just make sure it's even, and yeah, it should be on pretty straight. You can also adjust the tilt of your handlebars depending on your preference or your comfort. I decided to go with this. Here, just putting on the levers. Yeah, there's a little bolt that goes through the lever and it joins up with a little band. So what I do is I try to line up the lever with the bottom of the drop with the ruler, nice and straight here, straight edge. And then you can kind of go from here, do both sides, and then try it out to make sure it feels good. Just stand over the bike and do it, and then double check that's level before you tighten it again, because sometimes you could change it, and make sure you're happy with where the levers are. And then here, just using a string is another method of making sure your levers are even. You just make sure it's parallel from the string to the bar. And yeah, that's a pretty straightforward approach. Here, cleaning up the BB. This is just an old BB. It turns all right, and didn't get enough time to get another one, so this one's going on. And yeah, gave this a clean using a little bit of WD-40 and just some spray, but it cleaned up pretty well. Installing the BB here. Make sure you grease it up because you don't want any seized BBs, and you don't want to break a bar to get them off. But yeah, just screw it on by hand. Make sure you don't cross thread it. I add a little bit more grease here around the edge just to make it waterproof. That's my thought anyway. It might not help, but I think a little bit of grease there should hopefully create a complete seal. I know some people use tape as well. They use tape around the threads and they screw it on, and then that makes it super tight. But yeah, I'm not sure if that throws out the tolerance or not, depending on how thick and what tape you use. Here, putting on the crank arms, a little bit of grease on the tapers and screw it on. Just screw it on flush so it's nice and snug as well. You don't need to go super ham with this. And that's looking pretty good. Same with the other side, a little bit of tape, a little grease on the tapers. I know some people like to do this dry, but I definitely don't recommend that if you ever had to take a seized crank off. Here, putting on the little shifters, pretty easy here, just screw it on with a screwdriver. And yeah, that's working pretty nice as well. Same with the other side, put the washer on and screwdriver. So I've set this up as friction as well. You can set up as index if you want, putting on the brakes. Yeah, I don't think I showed it or did video of it, but what you want to do is line up your pads with the rim as well. That's pretty straightforward, so you guys can probably imagine what that looks like. But yeah, you just want it fairly tight. You can rotate the brake a little bit to make sure the pad clears and then tighten it. Just make sure there's enough clearance. Putting on the rear mech there, make sure it sits on there nice and flush. And then here, not forgetting the little derailleur cable hanger. And this is just screwdriver again. Yeah, just snug, nothing too crazy. And then here, putting on the front mech. So yeah, with the front mech, what you want to do is align it parallel with the chain rings, and you also want it to clear the chain rings by, I think recommended is 3 mil, 1 to 3 mil. But with the biopaste, because it's an oval, just make sure you rotate the crank arm to make sure it doesn't hit. Mine was getting like super close, like under 1 mil. So I decided to move it up a little bit and make sure it wasn't hitting. Here, just cleaning the wheels using a brake cleaner. The brake cleaner is just car brake cleaner. I think it's cheaper than other stuff. And yeah, just basically just wiping all the, I'm not sure what the old residue is, but I think it maybe is some old brake pad residue, but it was all over the rim as well. But I was able to get a lot of it off just using the brake cleaner. And in hindsight, should probably clean your rims last in case you get more oil and stuff on them. But yeah, it seemed alright. They cleaned up pretty well.
Alright, these are the tires I got. I got Continental Ultra Sport 3 25C, and these are foldable. I think they're pretty cost effective, pretty light as well. So yeah, I'm going to chuck them on and see how it goes. Just chuck them on. Alright, there we go, all done. Just use these Pedros, but yeah, I think these are looking pretty good.
Alright, now cleaning the hubs. I think the front hub wasn't spinning that well, so I decided to just give it a clean. So try and get this rust off the top, and then a tip is to just take off one side while you replace the bearings, and then use a little magnet to get all the bearings out. You can also use a cotton bud to get rid of the grease on the inside. I did try popping the cap off, but yeah, the cap didn't come off for some reason, so I decided to just leave it and just clean it with the cap on. And then here, the same with the other side. Just use some foil, WD-40, and a brush, some cotton buds, and came up pretty clean. Make sure you clean your axle as well. Give that a wipe through. Make sure you count your ball bearings and don't lose any, otherwise your count will be off. But yeah, I ended up counting 10 on each side, and these are 3/16 of an inch bearings, just in case you're wondering. For the front hub, for the rear hub is a different size, so just be careful of that. And then yeah, grease it up, put your bearings in, put the axle back in, and just tighten it up. And when you tighten it up, you want to make sure it spins pretty freely, but there's zero play at all. Otherwise your wheel is going to shake when you put it back into your dropouts. But yeah, this sometimes may take a while, but the more you do it, the easier it gets. But yeah, that was spinning like butter now, pretty good. And then yeah, just put the quick release back on, clean the quick release lever as well with a little bit of a WD-40, again, wire brush. I didn't use a wire brush, I just used nylon brush for that one. But yeah, that's looking fresh. And then here for the rear cassette, I didn't have 2 chain whips, and that's how you take this rear cassette off. So I had to just clean it best I could with the cassette on there, using paper towel and a brush. And then here, just same with the other side. Had tons and tons of hair on it, but it all came out and spin pretty good. That's the overspray, so just be careful when you're cleaning. Here putting the wheels on. I think the bike is looking sweet already. It's starting to come together. It's almost done. Here putting the cables on. So yeah, when you measure out your cables, you want to be able to squeeze your brake because it's going to make your cable longer or mess up the length, the proper length that you need. So you just make sure you shove the cable in the lever and then squeeze on your brake to make sure you get the true distance. And then I use a little bit of tape, put on my jumper so it's not sticky, and then tie it on the corners to hold the brake cable in place. You don't need too many tape bits because I've unwrapped bars before and I've seen people go ham on the tape. They do like 6 different parts of tape, and then when you go take it off, it's like a big hassle. But yeah, basically just measuring all the cables out, making sure they're clear on the ends when you cut them. Here for the back brake, you just want to turn the handlebars to make sure that you get enough movement while the brake cable's in there, the housing's in there. Here, same with the brake, you can see the rear brake, once you squeeze it, it pulls down a bit. So yeah, make sure you do that. And then same with the rear mech as well, make sure you pull down the rear mech to get the right cable distance, because if you don't, it will be too short. Installing the brake cables now, what you want to do is wind out your adjuster out about 4 threads, and then you're going to put your cable in through the lever. Here was a little bit tricky because I already put the housing in, so I had to kind of pull the housing out a little bit to be able to guide the brake cable straight through. And then once you get it, make sure you clamp on the brake and tighten it. Make sure it's fairly tight. And then what you can do is squeeze on your brake to make sure there's no more play. And then wind your barrel adjuster back in. And what this does is it'll back off the brake off the rim, so you have enough room for the wheel to spin. And you can pull on your brake, make sure it works. You can tilt your brake sometimes and tighten it to make sure it clears as well. And yeah, there we go. And then here, the same thing with the back brake. Just slide it through. Sometimes I put a little bit of lube inside the housing as well to make it run super smooth. But yeah, it's the same technique here for the back. Not too much to it. Once you get one, the other one should be fairly easy. Just make sure it clears. So here's the bar tape I got, just Shimano Pro. It was pretty cheap, so seemed alright. So this is what comes inside. You can see this is just cork tape, seems pretty decent. Yeah, about that thick. Comes with this heinous tape, which I won't be using. Little extra bits for the handles, and then these bar ends here. I'm going to use this just electrical tape, running low, so hopefully it's enough. Alright, so here's how you install bar tape. I've done this before, and someone always points out something I'm doing wrong, so yeah, do your worst. But basically I start off from the inside and I wrap so it overlays and try to get it as even as possible. And then when you get up to the lever here, you want to go up and then across and then back down and then back up. And what this does is it's going to reverse your grip tape on how it overlaps, so it still overlaps down. So when you put your hands on the top, it's going to tighten it, and then when you put your hands on the drop, it's going to tighten the grip tape as well. Here you can see I wanted to put the finishing tape on, and I want it to end before it ramps up on the bar. And then here I'm just using the tape to kind of as a little guide of where to cut it. So I put the tape on the back, and then it gives me a guide to cut down the center of where the tape is. And I'm just going to cut it a line straight down. Or as straight as you can, of course. Just hold it tight and give it a nice snip. And then here you can see when I wrap it up, it's pretty perfect straight line. And what you want to do is you can start your tape before your tape actually ends, and it'll wrap the tape around, giving you a nice tight finish. Yeah, just take your time. This kind of stuff you can redo if you're not happy with it, and then I just snip it on the bottom to make it nice and clean. First the bar tape and then the actual black tape. And then the last thing to do is just put the end cap on. Yeah, just try to fold the extra bar tape in there and then just push it on.
Alright, that's it. I gotta say, I'm pretty happy with this. Yeah, just try to keep it even as possible. And then this tape turned out pretty sweet too. I don't know if you can see it because of the light. Yeah, pretty clean I think. Alright, so just gotta do the same on the other side.
So yeah, basically just did the same thing again. Try to keep it as even as possible. I have done bar tape where I started from the top and going down to the bottom, and sometimes that looks pretty cool as well if you use old ribbon bar tape. Here you can see I'm using a little tape measure to make sure the tape is the same distance from the stem as well, and then yeah, just make sure you measure it and then just tape it around. But yeah, all in all I was pretty happy with how it turned out.
Alright, there we go. All done. Looking pretty sweet, I think. Alright, this came in the mail today. Pretty sick. I've been waiting for this for like 2 weeks because they originally rerouted it wrong. But it's here now. It's pretty clean. I was gonna paint these like grey. Yeah, I thought the black might be a little overpowering, but I'll chuck it on the bike and see how it looks. And yeah, this is the turbo saddle I got. I think it's a vintage one actually. It doesn't have the silver rails, but you can tell when it's made here. 92. So yeah, pretty cool saddle. It does have the turbo on the front, which is cool.
Alright, putting on the seat post, just grease it up, don't want no seat posts. Ended up being the right size, which was good as well, 27.2, in case anyone's wondering out there. And then, yeah, with the saddle, putting on the saddle, I like just to turn this 90 degrees, and then you can slide the saddle on. You don't have to undo the bolt the whole way, it just slides on like that, and then you can clamp it on. And then with the saddle angle, usually I try to keep it horizontal, the front end of the nose horizontal, or you can, if you prefer, you can do 1 or 2 degrees pointing down a little bit towards the stem. But yeah, that worked pretty well. Here, installing the gear cables, make sure you lace it through the bottom and then lace it through that little hanger as well. Just do it tight for now, and then same with the other side. This goes through and then under. This one actually has a little guide, a little plastic guide that goes back up. So that's pretty cool.
So yeah, you just want to adjust your front mech. Make sure it's going to clear the chain right there, and it's parallel to the chain ring. And then you want to set the limit screws just right here to make sure it doesn't go too far out. You can see this one, I've already set it. Should be fine. Same with the smaller gear too. Alright, so for the rear one, we're going to align the low gear and also the high gear limit. Here I just wound the high gear all the way in just to show you. So now I got to wind this out until it lines up with here. So just anti-clockwise. You can see it's moving slowly. And then to do the low gear now, what you need to do is put tension on the cable. You can see it's pretty close, pretty good, but it's pretty close to the spokes here. So I'm just going to move it out a tiny bit. So I'm going to wind this clockwise a little bit to tighten it, and just to bring that little cog in. And that's basically it. Yeah, I think you'd do it a touch more here. Here we go. Alright, gonna chuck the chain on. So I got this SRAM 8-speed chain. 6, 7, 8, it's all the same size, so this will work pretty well. And I'm just going to clean it with this smooth prep, just kind of like a degreaser, and then I'm going to lube it up with this after.
Yeah, just giving this a quick clean, just 2 capfuls, and then give it a rinse. Makes it light work of that. And then here, just feeding the chain through, just sizing the chain. You want it on the biggest chain ring and the biggest cog. And what you want to do is size it correctly here. I actually sized it wrong properly. I made the chain shorter for some reason. I think I was just didn't have my head straight. But basically, what you want is you want it to kind of push it where it joins here, and then add 2 rivets. Make sure you put the quick release on there, the little quick link on there, just to make sure you're getting the right length. And yeah, that's how it should be. And then here, just chucking it on. You're just gonna have to imagine that this chain length is the right size. But yeah, you'll see how tight it is once I put it on. But yeah, I didn't do footage of the other bit. But yeah, basically once you get it on, you can use a little paper towel to kind of pull the quick link on tight. It should just snap together. And then after that, basically what I did was I just lubed up the chain. I just lube up on the inside. Make sure you try to get it to seep in between the pivots. And then yeah, just finishing off the cables, cutting the cables, putting on the cable ends here. Just with a pair of pliers, if you don't know what that looks like.
Check the pedals on. You can see the wheel's not properly dished, so I'm just gonna tighten all the spokes on the right hand side just to pull it over, maybe a quarter turn, and that should be it. Alright, there we go. Ended up about being, yeah, like a full turn. That's pretty good now.
Alright, one last thing is putting some vinyl paint on the logos here because they're a bit distracting. And bada bing, bada boom, it's done. Alright, that's basically it. I think the bike turned out super sick. I'm super happy with it. It rides super smooth, and yeah, I think it looks pretty cool as well, the dark green. At the beginning I thought the reach was going to be too long, but by the end of the ride it ended up being pretty comfy, so I think it's just my back stretching out, probably from riding all the upright mountain bike setups I have. Big thank you to Ryan Devlin for donating to this build. I did end up getting a new Canon WD-40, so yeah, thanks for that. Thank you to the people that bought shirts, stickers, I appreciate it. More stuff should be coming soon. And last but not least, if you made it this far, thank you for watching. If you have any questions, just let me know in the comments, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace.